So this is the panel for how to get in the game industry. My name is Jeff Toney, principal artist for Kings Isle Entertainment. We're here locally as a video game producer for our major game is Wizard 101. It's a MMO for kids. And we also have Pirate 101. And just recently, I think last year, released Rise and Destroy, which is an iPad game. And then we just announced a new title called Alpha Cat. So we've done several different titles. I personally have been doing this about, I'll say about 12, 13 years. And then I want to introduce my esteemed colleagues. So let's just introduce, I am an artist, so any art questions will be fielded by me. And then we have...
My name's Rachel Ripstra. I am a lead software engineer at Kings Isle.
So programming.
I've been in the industry since 2001, so unfortunately that's up to 15 years now.
That's pretty good.
My name is Kat Wensky. At Kings Isle, I am the associate producer for audio, but I do have experience doing sound design and music for games as well. So if you have any just general audio questions, be it voiceover stuff or sound or production, if you will, please field those to me as well.
My name's Valerie Kromis. I am a game designer, and I originally started in QA and moved up into design, and have been officially doing design for almost 7 years.
There you go. First of all, let's get a show of hands on who's interested in what. Art. Who is interested in art? All right, who's my artist friends right here? Okay, good. Who's interested in programming? Engineering? Good, okay. Sound, voice acting,
Yes.
sound design.
Yes, more hands.
What's that?
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. Okay, and then finally design. Okay, so we're actually, kind of four-way split, really. Who is interested in community? Not represented right now. And we also have marketing. We also have producer. Okay, yeah. There's many different roles you can do you don't have to do programming or art or anything like that for it. There's a lot of different things. Since it's a team environment, we have a lot of different people. I think we're up to 250 people or so for Kings Isle. And the larger the corporation or the company, the more you can find a niche that may fit you. But first of all, I think we'll just go with art. If people want to do art for video games, one of the major things they need to do is we at Kings Isle care about a 4-year degree, but it's not necessarily the case for everyone for art. As long as your portfolio is good and you've been practicing through high school and maybe through college, but you haven't got your degree yet, the portfolio is what matters. And one of the things that we have to look at is a lot of different portfolios, so keep it short and to the point, and we don't need to have more than, say, 2-3 minutes of video for any art that you can show. Right now there's kind of a resurgence of 2D art, since mobile games are such... who's into 2D art? Who's into 3D art? Who's into 2D? Yeah, pixel, okay. Anyone into 3D? Okay, cool. There's actually a lot for both. You don't have to, you could specialize in one and make a career out of it nowadays. I would have to say in the mid, 2000s, it was pretty much 3D or nothing, but nowadays with the advent of iPad and everything, you could be a pixel artist, and it's very nice. But one of the things that you need to worry about is show your process the best. If you are able to concept and then model and then texture and then animate all in the same time, show that through the process of your video, either on your website or, if you wanted to go old school, a little CD. But usually you link to your website and either on YouTube, and you actually show your work. But again, only 2 minutes or so, because after 2 minutes we start to get a little bored, kind of thing. You want to show your best work at the beginning. You don't want to show all your work. You just want to show your best. Rachel,
Yep.
for programming. What is the main things they need to worry about as far as trying to get into the industry? What are the things, classes?
Right. Well, like most technical disciplines, mastery of the tools is what it is. And for engineers, that's going to be the language that you're using.
Yeah.
Usually that's C++ or C#. And then domain knowledge in the particular area that you're interested in. In most games, you're looking at things like tools development, graphics, programming, networking, audio programming, or sort of more of a general gameplay. At entry level, you're looking for probably a 4-year degree. That's a good step forward, just because that means that you probably know the technical details of the things that you're doing. So
Is that more of a necessity for programmers?
then more than what you explained for art, certainly.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's not a requirement everywhere. It's certainly a requirement at KingsIsle to have a 4-year degree. Other places sometimes will offer like experience, but then you're looking at shipped titles or really strong hobbyist development, independent game development, to show that. Well, I guess the main difference between a hobbyist and a professional is completing projects. A lot of people who are like making games, they go through the fun part of building it out, figuring out what they want to do, getting a prototype out, and then
This is a very important point, guys.
and then you feel good about yourself and you're done. And you show it to your friends and everybody's great, but you can't sell it because it's not going to work on every platform. It doesn't have all the features you need to make people go, I will give you money for this. And so if you have a degree, that's a good sign that you can finish things. And if you don't, then we're looking for more completed projects that you can demonstrate, similar to a portfolio.
Yeah. I can't stress enough, anything that is shorter but completed is much better than a meandering RPG that is in Act 1 of Act 16 that I haven't got to yet. A complete puzzler, maybe with some RPG elements, you never know, is anything completed is much better. So that's a very good point. Kat.
So a lot of the sound designers I know actually don't have degrees. I actually have a degree, but in something completely different. I have a double major in psychology and child learning and development because I wanted to go into research.
That works for the video game industry, though.
Yeah, I mean,
Production.
quite frankly, yes. There's so much of sound is psychological. You want to pull on the senses. You want to evoke something that maybe the player isn't really wanting at the time or doesn't know that that's what they're supposed to feel. Audio in general complements gameplay. And so, yes, psychology does play into that. So, yeah, that's cool. But
Can you dabble in sound? How do you dabble in either sound design or what kind of programs you can use that may be free?
Sure. If we're talking about free programs, there are a lot of people that use things like Audacity and Goldwave. At KingsIsle, we use Reaper, which is significantly more cost-effective than things like Pro Tools. Pro Tools is also an industry standard as well. I've known some people that use Ableton, which is
What is that called?
Ableton.
Ableton.
Mostly musicians will use it, but I do know some really talented sound designers that do some very unique things with Ableton. But kind of going off of what Rachel was mentioning, completing projects is extremely important.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's kind of a catch-22 when you want to get a job in the industry. It's like they want you to have ship titles, but how do you ship titles if no one will pick you up? So one of the biggest things I recommend is working on group projects, student projects, projects with other indie folk. The more you have experience working with other people, the more people will understand, oh, this person's a great team player. And if you are local in Austin, there's a group called Juegos Rancheros. It's Juegos with a J. And it's essentially a group of indie people that will gather every month, and they'll show off some games, kind of talk about yada yada and whatnot. But it's a fantastic way to kind of network and see if, like, hey, does this person need sound, or do they need an extra programmer? Sometimes it's unpaid gigs, sometimes it is paid gigs, but I highly recommend checking in with them.
Is that a Google search for Juegos
Yeah, you
Rancheros?
can do a Google search for that. If you are not local to Austin, I recommend checking to see if your IGDA chapter in wherever you may live, I believe it's International Game Development Association.
I think so, yeah.
I was like, it's not independent. But
No.
yes, yeah, check in with them because usually they'll have gatherings, and I've seen places where they will kind of do an entry level, like, hey, this is what the industry is like. So that's a fantastic place to kind of pop in, learn a few tricks, or even just poke around and network there as well. Another neat place is to look at gamedevmap.com. It shows a very comprehensive list of the game studios throughout the world. There are some that might be missing, some of the smaller studios, but they'll also list out like these are specifically developers, these are specifically publishers, or these do both, and sometimes like what platforms they might be working on as well.
Yeah, I was surprised there was probably 120, 130 companies in Austin that
has
were
a lot of
yeah,
places.
it's pretty good. And that's one of the things is also getting a job in general. It tends to help to move to the place first. I kind of went to Austin mainly because of the buzz around Origin, around some of the older places where this is a place where game development happens. It was, for me personally, it was between Austin, San Francisco, possibly Boston. Nowadays, Maryland, around Bethesda for the Elder Scrolls. Around there is pretty good. If you want to work for Raven, go to Madison, Wisconsin. That's an odd place to go, but they're a really good developer. So going to the place tends to help. It gives you a little bit more face time. I mean, just being here helps with networking for Austin game development. I mean, we're only here. Yeah, good.
I was gonna say I actually did the same thing too.
What's that?
I worked in Dallas. I worked on.
Dallas has some.
Yeah. I was an intern for Borderlands, and then after that, I'm like, I want to actually try my hand at other types of games, and so I moved to Austin before having a job, actually, which is the most terrifying thing ever.
Turned out Austin's a great place.
Yeah, Austin is fantastic. There are so many small studios that are very welcoming to people that are entry level.
So what was that name of that site? Game Dev Map?
Yes.
Okay.
GameDevMap.com. Write it down. Check it out. I don't know if it works well on the mobile, but check your copy.
It's actually pretty much just a Google Earth, and it shows where
neat.
exactly they live. The game studios. It's pretty nice. Valerie, sorry, you're last, but not least. Design is very important.
Design is very important. In fact, typically there are about 3 branches of game design.
I only know 2, so this will be educational.
Creative, and content.
Okay, cool.
Content. Systems is a lot more math and balancing driven. So if that's your thing, which is, I highly recommend just dabbling in all of it. Creative, in our company, is usually writing the lore, the story, the dialogue, which is a really cool aspect of it. And content is actually the group that takes all of that and throws it into the game.
Is that level design and things like that?
Yes.
And placement of NPCs?
Placement of NPCs, placement of triggers, trigger objects, all that. So if you like playing with Legos, content design might be your deal. If you like balancing, system might be more your deal. And if you're more of a creative aspect, there's...
Which one are you personally into more as far as like systems, content?
Right
creative?
now, I'm doing a lot more system stuff.
Okay.
I started off doing content, but it's been a really fun challenge. So I highly recommend dabbling in all 3 and just to find your niche. And kind of the same with programming, sound, art. Just get in there, get into Unity, run through some tutorials, just build some stuff. And also check if there are any game jams that happen locally within your community. Game jams are a fantastic way to get an experience because it's usually a 24-hour period or so.
Usually 48. It's tough doing anything past 24 hours for a game.
Sometimes it's 3 days.
3 days?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
2 to
So-
3 days, we'll say. Yeah.
So there's definitely community outreach. So don't think that you're of yourself as an island because you're not going to get very far. You actually have to interact and get out there and network.
And this is probably the second most important thing that Valerie has said is first thing was finish. Second is teamwork. This is a very teamwork driven industry. And
Even
you
engineers.
Yeah, even engineers. They tend to be a little isolated from the rest of them. They like their own place, but it's cool.
I still pop by a lot.
Yeah. you are dependent on so many other people. You can't expect, unless you're doing your own thing. I mean, what's that new game with the Harvest Moon guy? Stardew Valley, right? Anyone play this game? Yeah. Stardew Valley. One guy, 10 years, making a Harvest Moon game. If you want to spend 10 years doing it by yourself, cool. But usually video games are about teamwork between all the different disciplines, and then finding out and testing and making sure it's the best you can be, we didn't say anything about creative. Anyone writers? Any writers here? Okay, cool.
I could probably speak some to that since we work
Go
with
ahead.
creatives a lot.
Yeah.
So yes, at KingsIsle, creatives do a whole bunch, especially
Yeah.
on the MMO side, of course.
They're very important.
Yes. So a lot of times for the MMO side, the writers will come up with the general story, and they'll even go room by room of this is what should happen, what should interact within this room. This is what art should be here, how it should be placed. And in regards to VO stuff, we work very closely together. Like, tell us what kind of character you're looking, what kind of age, kind of give us a description of the general feel of the character. When we go to the VO booth, we will often bring one of the writers or two of the writers and just kind of have them sit with us just to make sure that we are conveying the character that they're trying to come up with. We're very fortunate to have very good voice actor creatives at KingsIsle, so a lot of our writers are actually voicing a lot of our characters too.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. They're always good to fill in.
Yes, very good to fill in. But please, if you're into becoming a writer, lock down your script because oh my gosh, especially when there's so many projects going on simultaneously, it's very difficult to have to go back to the studio that we go to and record and then re-edit and then reprocess.
That's very specific device. I love it.
I'm just saying, I love VO. One of my favorite things in games is to just, talk to all the NPCs.
Are you an NPC in a game? Have you ever done any voice?
I have, yeah. I am an NPC in Age of Empires Online.
Oh, very cool.
We needed someone to be a young, naive person interested in science.
That's
So,
funny.
yeah, so
and they
online-
picked you?
I'm sorry. One time I did some temp VO for one of an unreleased game that I worked on at another studio, and they needed a very older, mature lady, and I just don't have a very deep voice to begin with, so I just sounded like a kid sidekick.
That's awesome.
Yeah, temp VO, even that's important because it gives the designers a better feel of the pacing of the level progression, and the writers to actually hear it and be like, oh, that doesn't really make much sense.
Is anyone interested in VO as far as work? Can you talk, what kind of submissions do you get from VO?
Oh, sure.
people?
A lot of people join agencies. KingsIsle specifically works with agencies like DB, Talent, and Collier. We also work with...
And what? What was that?
Collier.
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 Okay.
We also work with a lot of indie voice actors, and they often will negotiate rates with us. And a lot of times we look at demo reels that are about 2 to 3 minutes. You want to show a variety of the types of voices you can do. I recommend making sure that it's a very clean reel. I've heard some where you just hear so much background noise and so much
So
excess
tinniness,
stuff.
so basically echoes are bad.
Echoes, but I'll hear dogs in the background or their TV.
Really? In their portfolio?
For some people that I have
my
sent
Lord.
across, double check it, make sure it's clean because you want to convey the sound of your voice. Sometimes if there's music in there, sometimes it can be distracting instead of adding to the overall feel you're trying to give. But it's the same thing with an audio demo reel. You want to make it not too excessively long. You're not trying to give this whole...
So you're like an
10-minute
artist too. We get bored after a couple minutes of listening to something.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then also keep in mind that a lot of times employers are listening to a whole bunch of reels. So you want to make the most impact right away. Doesn't mean just start off with something yelling because that is the worst thing ever.
That's funny.
But yeah, I recommend having an online demo reel. sometimes CDs just get lost in the mix.
How hard is it to get to something like an agency like that? If you're an independent person, I mean, is it hard to just contact them, say, hey, I'd like you to represent
really.
me?
I could be completely wrong. It really depends on the agency, but I know there are some agencies where you sign up and they will kind of help coach you along the way, and it's relatively easy. Some places
That
you have
seems
to
simpler than I
audition for, and then based on your level, that's how they decide if they would like to pick you up.
That's cool. Valerie, I wanted to talk about resources for designers. Design is so nebulous in some ways.
Right. It really is.
It's not. You can't really show necessarily a portfolio, but what do people usually look for newer designer?
A lot of companies will actually give out a test. Depending,
okay.
Yeah, depending on which particular role you're wanting to go for. Like a systems design test, they'll give you a lot of values and say, create equipment and balance it, and then tell us why you did it this way. For content design, most of the time you can do just a simple portfolio similar to...
Would a flyby of a level that you've created be good enough? Is
Absolutely.
that just a quick time of this, I made this level and I'm spinning around this? Okay.
Absolutely. And another thing you can do is create top-downs of what you imagine in your head and translate it into graph paper.
Yeah.
Just show your steps. You started off with a top-down and your idea morphed into an actual level in Unity, and then you just go through a play-by-play of how you did that. And
So actually, that's not much different than art,
right.
in that we like to see the initial sketch, if you've done it. We'd like to see the next part, which is a 3D rendering possibly, and then a flyby or a spin of the final render is not bad either. So actually, the same process applies to either design for level content. Now, systems, that tends to be more programmer related. Do you guys give a test too?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yeah.
What is entailed in that usually?
So with engineers, usually we do a phone screen first, and when I'm conducting a phone screen, I'm usually looking straight up technical stuff. So
you're asking specific questions?
Specific questions
Okay.
about general, like electrical engineering, computers, language-specific things. If it's C++, do you understand scoping? Do you understand what the keywords mean? Do you know what virtual means? Do you know what static means?
No. All I know is
all that stuff.
I don't need to dereference a null. That's bad. Apparently.
That would be bad.
That's the only thing I know.
Yep. Just to see if you understand the tools and to try to get a sense of matching up what you say you've done and doing on your resume to me talking to you. If it looks like you know what you're talking about, then we'll do a face-to-face, and there's another programming test.
So actually, you don't necessarily need to see a example of a game in order for, a resume is good enough for people to start with.
Particularly entry level, if you have a four-year degree in computer science.
That's a good starting point.
And you've shown interest with your extracurricular activities, or you have your own thing that says, I've been looking at games. I'm not solving race conditions on an ATM thing. You actually want to make games. Then that's usually at the top, right? We'll at least usually give you a phone screen to see if you know what you're talking about. But once you come in, then we're looking at, can you debug code? How nimble are you thinking through logic puzzles? General problem solving sorts of things, pseudocode, writing pseudocode by hand to solve problems. And then depending on what we're actually hiring for, I'll ask questions more specific to the position that you would be
There's three
filling.
different types in general of designers. How many different programmers do you think? I can think of 2, 3 off the top of the head, but is there a general, you are a server programmer, or you are a...
Well, each company splits them up a little bit differently. I generally think of it as the more creative engineers, which are dealing largely with solutions that don't have technical answers like gameplay, where it works once everybody's happy with it. And then there's all the disciplines which are much more technical focused. So networking, graphics, where you're saying, this is the set of things we need to do. This is how many objects are on the screen. It has to run in this many clock cycles. Can you make it do that?
Is it better for a wider variety? For instance, I dabble in graphics, I dabble in engine, I dabble in network. Or is it better to just focus on, say, oh, I am a network?
I wish I had specific answers to that.
I was just wondering.
It varies.
Okay.
At KingsIsle, we tend to be more generalist.
Because we don't know what we need next sometimes.
It keeps changing.
Okay.
So generally, most people will do some gameplay and then specialize in something. But at the same time, the more technical it is, the more specialized it can become. So if you're a network engineer or a graphics programmer, that tends to get pretty specific.
And we would probably want to look for someone with that expertise.
Yeah, then we'll
we need the expertise. We need to look for someone specific for this.
Yeah, new platform comes out, new version of DirectX, some hardware problem. We're looking for a graphics programmer.
Okay.
You're going to get a lot of 3D math questions, a lot of pipelining questions. Yeah.
Okay. We'll take it to questions just in general. Does anyone have any questions specific to them? But we can keep on talking, you know. But does anyone have anything that is that they are interested in or that they feel they need more specific answers to? We'll go with you. PlayStation.
I write, produce, and direct short films, which means like I'm all about like the storytelling aspect of things, and like I don't know how to operate a camera, and I work with people who are better actors than me and better sound operators than me. And like,
You're the producer guy.
yes,
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Producing is knowing what people are capable of and making sure that they get that done. And
That's actually really good.
yeah, I love Telltale and Rockstar and Don't Nod and BioWare and anything that's like more narrative driven. And I would love to pivot into doing that. And I was similar to how I've been talking to film people. I know I just can't go to Hollywood and say, hey, let me produce and direct, like let me be Louis C.K. Like what aspect, like if you want to break in, if I were to eventually want to do that, how do I market myself?
The funny thing is, producer doesn't have a direct path from A to B. We've had producers from customer service. We've had producers from sound. We've had producers from designer. We've had producers from QA. So it's more about you showing some aptitude towards organization in, say, QA or some. You tend to lead and direct people in that. And then if there's a producer spot open, and there's associate producers all the time, that is pretty much, once you get the associate producer, that's pretty much a way to get to full producer on your own project. And you're right, it is tough to get from just straight to associate producer. It has happened, but usually people start in another discipline and then they show an aptitude towards leadership.
I think
Yeah, go ahead.
since you have worked with, groups for small
film work is good.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you can translate a lot of that into working on small indie projects, and then once you have done that, I think that would look fantastic on a resume. Like I've led a team of 4 or 5 people, and this is how we got from point A to B to C to D. Since I am in the production realm, as Jeff mentioned, you can come from a different discipline. Like I specifically came from audio, and it wasn't audio at KingsIsle. The company I was at before this is called Gleek, and it is a contract house that would do sound for multiple types of games, different studios and whatnot. And so when you are a contractor, you kind of see what it's like for coming in at different parts of the development cycle. And so that's something that I brought from there to translate into KingsIsle, and being able to convey what you can bring to the table and how you can help their organization, I think helps a lot.
Yeah, so I think I feel your focus is narrative video games. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if your film expresses that, but if it does, I would maybe be able to detail, I led a team of so-and-so people and we did this short film, here it is, this is my role in this, this is our problems, this is what I had to solve to do that. And that's more of a, for you, that'd be like, Telltale is looking for an associate producer. I got my resume out. I'm sending it out for them.
Didn't you raise your hand for writing as well?
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's how it started.
Writers
That
are
would
another
be
good one, too,
creative.
yeah.
Yeah.
You could start by actually scripting out NPCs and then.
I guess the
moving
point
on.
is there's no single path for it. It sounds like you're on the right track though.
Cool.
And I don't know if are you local?
Ohio.
Ohio?
It's one of those like.
Ohio, go
I
check
would move.
RGDA. Go find a chapter there. Go find
There's
a
not
chapter.
much in Ohio for game development.
Exactly.
But it sounds like you have a certain amount of faith and want to play with Telltale games, BioWare, all this. BioWare's here in town. While you're here in town, don't know if you can actually contact someone from them. I mean, we're narrative too, type of thing. We'll get a business card from me if you want.
Right on.
But focus on those certain video game places kind of see if they have any openings for that, and then have your resume ready. It sounds like you could get at least a first interview with the production stuff that you've done. So
Or internships are always helpful.
that's true.
Cool. And I'm sure a separate question at some point some of the artists are going to ask between Unity and this free version of the CryEngine that Amazon has. And
Yeah, that's
I think
so new.
Unreal is now kind
Yep.
of semi-free as well. Like, yeah,
Yes, like subscription also.
Yeah, which do you suggest if somebody were to start doing something like that to dive into?
That's more of an engine question.
It kinda
so that's
depends,
more design
too.
actually.
If you're looking at narrative,
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to be organizing a team necessarily, but if you're looking at narrative and creative, I would be looking at modding a game. Something that already has art assets, something that already has audio assets, something that already has systems in place, and rebuilding them in creative ways.
And I believe
different
Unity has a
stories.
better support for that with all their
I think
art assets
Unreal
and
has
stuff.
a better support.
What's that?
I think Unreal has a better
Oh, we're gonna
support.
fight.
Already,
We're gonna
already.
fight. Okay, explain. Unreal has a good.
So I actually just recently checked to see what Unreal is like now because I've used previous versions, and they actually have really nice templates of the different types of styles you might want to do, like a top down, a first person, a rolling ball, whatnot, and they actually have it mostly set up there.
Do they have assets that you can use as
I
temp
believe
and
they
stuff
have
like
some
that?
in-game assets too.
In-game assets as well as a marketplace. It's recently
Yeah.
actually using it right now to build a main game for
Oh, fantastic! Right. Yeah, I mean Unity has a great selection.
Well,
of
I was
in-game assets,
expressing
too.
Unity has a great marketplace.
Yeah.
They have
Unity
a
definitely has a much larger one.
Yeah.
From what I've seen.
But
I'm
it's-
not
it's
sure in
more
terms of how much
established.
free content Unity has overall.
True.
But then again,
That's a question though for the artists.
stuff on there.
What was that?
I was just telling you how there are some free placeholder. Oh, I just meant sort of overall comparative.
Right.
Who has more free stuff to be accessed.
Well, I was going to say for the artist people, yeah, one second. The using the marketplace and getting some assets in the marketplace for either Unity or maybe I don't think Cryotech has a marketplace yet, but it probably does. I mean, everyone seems to be doing that, and then showing, oh, I created this asset, I created that asset for the marketplace. That's really good for your portfolio too. This is for the artist. Okay. Anyway, I had some questions. All right. Well, I had your in the back. Where's the microphone? All right. We got the white shirt guy in the middle.
Yeah, a question about programming.
Yeah.
So you've been in the industry for 15 years.
Uh-huh.
People who are new coming in the game industry or just new people coming in, is there anything that you're like, man, I really wish they had this one skill set that you're finding that a lot of people lack, like this certain thing, and it's just valuable if they know how to do like threading or like
Right. I think
what's missing in the knowledge of programmers coming in? What do you wish
Right.
they had?
The difference between when I got in the industry and right now is there are a lot more trade schools like Full Sail that are training people specifically for game development sorts of positions.
Is there any in Austin? Or is everyone in Dallas and
Well,
there's no
with the
gaming?
University of Texas and the Austin Community College, they have
Austin Community College is a great college.
but also the development of independent games. You have a lot of people who are doing it on their own. And the thing that tends to fall by the wayside in both of those things is the sort of breadth of education you get from a 4-year degree in computer science. So one of the things I normally tell people is like, if I was left on my own to build things, there are courses that I took at UT that I am very glad I did, and I never would have otherwise. For me,
So they force you
specifically-
to do something that you...
yeah, for me
okay.
specifically, it's computer architecture. I was interested in making games, not learning how a computer works necessarily, right? Not in that amount of detail, but knowing how cache systems work, knowing how processors thread and the pipeline of processors work, how all the data is moving. It lets you build better algorithms. It lets you construct things in a way that works better than you would have otherwise. Because there's a lot, the problem with most engineering is that there is more than one solution, and the correct solution is contextual. And if you don't have the breadth of knowledge to know the platform that you're writing for and the tools at your disposal, you're probably going to choose wrong. So just the breadth of knowledge.
Where are you in your education right now?
I've done 3 years, and I've taken a break at sport and
Okay.
Bluetooth and stuff for a startup. But, so it's very just it's technical. Like you got to know how to do it.
Yeah.
Lower level if you want to make an optimized game.
The easier stuff is people coming up with fun game ideas and then coming up sort of with the highest level algorithms of this does this and I need an inventory and that sort of stuff. But then eventually you're going to have to write a system that says, okay, there's 1,000 images. How are you going to have those on the screen at the same time? How are you going to dynamically load them? What pattern are you going to be doing, right? And if you are just doing it sort of happenstance, you will get an answer that works, but it may not work on the most systems. Yeah, it's like, okay.
All
Like I
right.
said, it's good for a hobbyist, but if you're
Yeah.
trying to ship something professionally, then a little bit more, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Up front.
Do you have any voice acting exercises you would recommend?
Voice acting recommendation. I recommend practicing making sure that you are standing up straight. You want to make sure your diaphragm is open because a lot of that air is right up here. And if you're like kind of
In a
hunched
whirl.
over, it's just kind of really like caged. But when you're sitting up properly or standing, because normally we'll do VO sessions with people standing, and you have all this open, you sound so much better. You have that excess of air. Also, make sure your pockets are empty. Make sure your phone is off, because man, those are so difficult to clean. It's just messy. Don't do that. I recommend tongue twisters are fantastic.
What is?
Tongue twisters.
Tongue twisters. Okay, so
Yeah.
just basically a couple of. Okay. Peter
Because
Piper.
it helps you kind of loosen up as well. And before you go to a VO session, make sure you are well hydrated the night before. Because if you're not, you'll get like little clicking in your mouth that even if you're drinking during the session, it will persist. Apple juice is something that we also have voice actors bring because
juice.
it keeps your
That's the
palate all
secrets
nice
to the
and
stars.
moist. I'm sorry?
Apple juice. Does anyone have any design questions or art questions? All right, saw your hand in the back. Well, in the middle, sorry. Girl with the glasses?
So this is a writing question.
A writing, good.
Kind of a technical one. Is there, as somebody who's in design, is there a particular format of file types? I've heard Celtics thrown around or Scrivener. Is there a particular program that the writers like to use for doing branching narratives or dialogue trees?
That's actually a good question that I don't really know how to answer.
Now, is this like almost a script?
Yeah,
Okay.
for scripting or for portfolio submission purposes. Is there something you like to see in the portfolio?
I don't think we care about file type. I mean,
Yeah.
truthfully, I think we use Word. Truthfully.
Yeah, that's all we use.
Yeah, we only use Word. We don't necessarily, if there's something to the next step, we don't necessarily use it. So that's actually, as long as we can open it and read the content.
And then along those same lines, what types of writing are you looking for? Character bios, or would you prefer a script between two characters?
Both, actually.
Yeah.
If you're one of the keys to creating a story in game is you're going to have to create the lore, and on top of that, you're going to need to write a script. So I suggest creating the lore and the bios first, and then working on your script.
Yeah, and I wouldn't go too wordy with it. I mean, it's nice to be succinct in that. It's basically you want to evoke a feeling in the least amount of words, type of thing. I know when I'm making a level, I read what they've described for it, and it's probably 2-3 paragraphs of the description of a level. This is a level that has insects in it, and it has mud daub for building materials and things like that. And this is their society. And I appreciate anything that they give that hints into what these guys actually lived like. For us, our game is very magical, so you can have a lot of different references to fables and stories and stuff like that. So that's really nice, and I always like when the writers add that little extra something for that. Also, for writers, submit stuff for, you don't want to submit stuff for, say, sports games if you're into role-playing games. You know, there's a certain point, even among the writers, there's a certain point where someone's more technical, someone's more narrative, someone's more, you know, descriptive. Look for companies that kind of have that same mentality that you do on, you know, BioWare is a very, very good place for that. A lot of people like the writing, you know, stuff like that. Seems to be the fan favorite. Any other questions? You had your, yeah, go ahead.
Hi. I
need an art question.
Sorry to disappoint you, but this is actually a writing question as well.
Okay, go ahead.
It's kind of two-part. So I'm a published author, but I'm also a first-year student at a business school right now, getting my MBA. So I really just wanted to know, in the words of the panel, just how someone can kind of like cross over and make their interest apparent if they come from like a super non-traditional background. Like I worked in corporate jobs for my entire career, but now I want to move into video games. And two, particularly like on the writing side, what can I do, like obviously besides showing you my novels, that, you know, to inspire someone to give me an interview and take a chance and to show that I can do the job, if that makes sense.
That's a good question.
Short stories are really good. One of our writers actually he used to work for CNN, which, you know, you wouldn't really translate one of those fellas into working on children's MMOs. No.
Bo?
No. Try again.
Oh.
It's Rob.
Oh,
Try
wow.
again.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So, I mean, yeah,
This
he came
is
from a
CNN.
different place. But yeah, I highly recommend kind of, you know, starting to write short stories because it's engaging and it's a smaller scale, and being able to share those would be really
You said you were a published a novelist? You had a published novel?
I do, and I was also wondering along those lines, would film scripts too
Oh yeah,
be a good thing?
yeah,
Okay.
that's great.
Truthfully, getting a scene from a novel and just submitting that wouldn't necessarily, if it evoked a larger world but still had a contained scene within it, if you don't want to do the short story route, that doesn't sound like a bad idea either.
I have both, but that's good to know.
Yeah, showing that flexibility would be fantastic.
And film script too. I mean, showing probably all three, but make sure they're not too much, a page a piece type of thing, or 2 pages a piece at the most. Okay. Again, your best work only, not all your work. That's pretty much, and it's kind of the way for most creatives is, let's see your best stuff. And usually show your best stuff first, because usually what we do is if you got 5 minutes of video and you open with a really crappy rendering of something, we're going, you don't know how to edit yourself. You don't know how to front load your best stuff. So just take a critical eye and just see, oh, this is my showpiece. This is my showpiece art. This is my showpiece writing. This just evokes a nice feeling, you know, kind of thing. Open with that, make a couple more scenes, show your process, and that's not a bad way of showing a portfolio or either writing or creative in general. I think. You guys agree with that? Is that cool?
Absolutely.
All right, well, there you go.
Great, thank you.
Art, I want to art. Okay, you.
So pumped.
As far as portfolio content,
Yes.
would you rather see like a certain set style, or would you rather see someone who has who can do a very wide variety of styles?
Having a style is excellent for art because it shows us what you can do. Having a couple different styles, though, shows me that you're kind of chameleon. And you can also see, if we have a style and we see you mimicking a couple other styles, maybe she could mimic our style too. So that's 2 different tracks almost. If you want to be a concept artist, we want style only because we love your style. Let's get it. If you want to be more of production, level design, character design. We have a style for something existing. So being able to mimic that is not that bad either. So it's actually a little bit of both. It's sort of like if you have a distinctive style, go with it. And if the people don't want that style, well, that's just the wrong place for that style. Is there a place around, for instance, Telltale Games has a distinctive style for some of their games. You know, there's a couple people that just have a very distinctive style. See if your style meshes with that. Double Fine has a very distinctive style for a lot of their video games. They have 2 or 3 illustrators that just do their art. And it looks like nothing else anyone else has done, and they love it, you know? And so really, it depends on what you feel you want to do. If you feel like, for instance, I'm a chameleon. I don't necessarily have a style. I'd like to mesh with other people's style. So I'm okay with seeing an inspiration from a concept artist, going, okay, let's see how do we translate that to the actual game, okay? So you can almost do both. Okay. It depends on your own personal interest, though. Right. I can't answer that for you, though.
Okay.
Do you have anything here? Oh, by the way, if anyone has any portfolios after the thing, feel free to come by. We'll talk. Just get some advice. If you don't have anything, next time you come to a presentation, bring a portfolio.
I have one. I can show you, and you can.
Yeah. And see if that helps.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
No problem. So we have art. Any programming? Yeah, programming up front. Sorry, we'll get through as many as we can.
So, is there any specific programming language that you would recommend starting with?
Starting with, because of the tools that are out there, I would probably start with C#. Unity uses it as a scripting language. It's robust enough that you can learn design patterns. What do you say?
Oh, really? C# is finally overtaken, huh?
Well, I think it's accessible. If you're starting with something like C++, you're going to be building stuff much more low level than I think if you're doing computer science, that's a good language to be using. But I think even a lot of universities now, they're going to Java. And so the more interpreted languages like that are going to be the things that you start with regardless. And the important things for engineering is learning the algorithms, algorithm analysis, design patterns, how to approach problem solving, that sort of stuff.
Hey, question.
And I think you'll have good use.
Scripting languages. For instance, Lua, all that.
Sure.
Is that a programming thing? Or is that more of a design thing?
It depends. Usually...
Is that usually?
In projects that I work on, I prefer having control over the scripting.
Right.
Largely because it's my department that's going to debug it. And if I'm going to be responsible for that, then I want to be responsible for that.
So that's one of those things where it could be either or. I'm sure some designers work in scripting languages.
We usually use that as an interpretive layer so that the tools will use Lua and Lua scripts to do something, and then the designers are usually just using our tools so that they have sort of abstract chunks that they can make use of.
By the way, we have a list of free programming resources if anyone's up. So after the talk...
Including a free book on C#.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Well, it's online, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a PDF, sure. Everything's a PDF nowadays. Yes, guy in the back. Let's wait. Let's wait for a microphone. Apparently this is taped, so you're out to the internets.
This might be related to that. I know a number of years ago, Neverwinter Nights came with a very detailed level editor. And I spent a lot of time building a huge mod that had hundreds of areas in it. So I have 2 questions. Number one, if I wanted to get into the industry at a creative level, when it comes to world building, lore, characters design, quest design, NPCs, that type of thing. Do those types of tools, since I'm not an expert at Unity or Unreal, would levels built in, I mentioned Neverwinter Nights, but I know several other similar games have level editors. Can you talk, number one, about that conceptual level where you're not really creating assets, you're not really building the levels in the final tools, but more from a conceptual level of world building and lore.
Yeah, that's design. That's all valid.
Yeah, that's absolutely a good starting point because you can sandbox a lot in Unity, but each company has a proprietary tool set for how they work. So just showing that you're willing to work in something that's already created helps a lot. I would definitely suggest taking like a flyover or just fraps of a couple of videos of you running through your own content and just maybe screenshotting how you set those tools up into working, because that translates really well once you actually get into design, because you probably won't be doing as much C# scripting. Like Rachel said, a lot of that is done on the programming end just so it's cleaner. But yeah, those kinds of tools are a great way to dabble into it. And if you want to get into it even more, free Unity, free CryEngine, all that.
Did you ever
helps.
finish? I'm just wondering. Did you ever finish that thing?
It was. I had a community of maybe 20 or 30 players who continually came back. I never I never said I'm done. I kept building more stuff.
You just kept building.
Right.
I would almost suggest having have a video of it, fly by, but talk over the video of your process as you're making these, and do that for, I'm going to say, 3-4 minutes, and just get a direct major points between them. That's not a bad little portfolio thing.
And I know everybody who wants to get into the industry, it's always like, I have a great idea for a game, and they leap right into the storytelling.
We don't need ideas.
That's a minimum requirement, not a sufficient requirement.
Yeah. Now the thing is, if you prove yourself in other ways, then you get into the industry. Then we'll start hearing ideas, because the thing is, the people in the industry already have the ideas as far as like what they want to build. Exactly. So you get into with the team, add your ideas to that, and then it becomes, let me spearhead. We have a game jam every year for our company, and we've had, I'm going to say, let's say 5, 6,
half a dozen of them.
5, 6 different ideas spearheaded by 1 or 2 people. And those we decided to take to full production. Alpha Cat was one of those, where one guy had an idea for this. It was a great 2-day project, and he spearheaded, and they were like, okay, let's make this a full-time production, kind of thing. And so it's possible. But he was in the company, we were playing around on Fun Day, and he just was able to express that. So good luck.
Thanks.
Guy in red in the back.
Work our way back.
Sure, why not? How much time we got? Got about 10 minutes.
Okay, so as a developer in a more traditional environment, I'm a software engineering manager, but for app development or application development.
Okay.
How does one transition being a senior developer in a traditional environment to a game developer, where when I have talked to people or networked with people in the game industry, the first question they say is, have you built a game?
Sure.
And I don't have, it's something that I was a very avid gamer. Things happen, life happens, so I don't exactly have the same community that I used to have inside gaming and stuff like that. How does one make that transition while still not necessarily going back to like internships and stuff like that?
So you said your experience is in app development. Is it mobile for phones and tablets, or is it primarily PC?
Primarily
Mac?
web application
Web
development.
apps?
Yeah.
It's a lot of UI in that. I mean, as far as I see.
So I do a lot of the back-end stuff, Node.js,
right.
Python,
So there are a
PHP.
couple. I manage a game development team, but there are other engineering disciplines within the game industry that are not game development. So you're looking at QA automation. You're looking at tools teams that are building out a variety of things that are just used to make the games. Sometimes we just plug into those on the game side, but there's people who are literally just building the back end sorts of things. We have engineers that work entirely on build machines, just reliable ways to build our code without using our machines, distributed systems. I mean, there's lots of things. You just have to try to see where your skill set
If he's looking for a
overlaps a
job,
bit.
So Can you, if I go, I know like games have APIs, and a lot of games are using the mean stack for mobile API gaming and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I get in there. Is there any way to transition to actually deving on the game from within the company?
Even recently on my team, I have an engineer that was in QA automation that just transitioned onto my team at an entry level for gameplay.
What did he show that made you want to? What did he have that made you want to express that?
Well, he knew the language that we were using, so he had the minimum required to make use of it, and he did know games. So I mean, I would, like, if you were applying to KingsIsle, I would start playing some mobile games and some MMOs just so you know what it is. I mean, even if you're a really technical person and you want to do very technical sorts of things, if you're going to be working on a game, you're probably going to talk to a non-engineer at some point, which means the metaphors they use, the references they're using are going to be,
you also got to talk slower to them. They don't understand much.
I do talk fast.
I work with the executive level quite a bit, so I know what that means.
There you go. You're already one step ahead.
I mean, I made a note that some awareness of English and literature and the gaming things is all useful, particularly if you want to be gameplay. But if you're working on transitioning to UI systems and tutorial systems that use UI, that sort of stuff, there's usually some sort of tool set that's useful that can bridge you into other things.
All right, looks like we got 5 minutes, so we'll go way in the back. Girl in a nice, pretty dress. Hope that's a dress.
Thank you. My name's Cash. I'm a singer-songwriter, and I have some questions about how to break into the industry. What do you guys look for? How do you receive how do you like to receive the demos? And
this is for writing, correct?
Songwriting, yeah.
Oh, songwriting?
Okay. Yeah, so sound, music.
Oh, sound, okay, got it.
Yeah.
So I would say it's similar to the voice acting and sound design demo reels. 2 to 3 minutes is a very good number to sit with. I recommend trying maybe just little snippets of different styles of music that you like to write for, especially with singing. Mm-hmm. For KingsIsle, we do record sometimes with like live instruments. It really depends on what studio you're looking at. We haven't really done anything with actual singing voices, but we do. I have worked with some other studios that look for singers for their types of games that they're doing, and sometimes they need someone to sing for a cinematic, or even for voice acting. We have some voice actors that are singers because you already know how to use those pipes and you know how to manipulate them very well. So that's also another route that you can look into.
Okay, thank you.
Good luck. Mm-hmm. I think we got time for 1 or 2 more. Let's go up front. Right here. I saw her hand raise up first.
This is a voiceover question. In reference, you mentioned the 2 to 3 minutes and different styles. What type of styles are you looking for a male voiceover artist versus a female, or not versus, or a female voiceover artist?
Well, I think you can do 2 things. When you're doing your demo, you can either make it specifically for that studio, which I think usually warrants the best results. So for KingsIsle, if you are a female, you want to show if you have a range of voices you can do. If you can do a younger voice, believably, then we love hearing that. We love hearing older voices. We love hearing accents, because for Wizard and Pirate, we travel to so many different types of magical lands, and so we have some that are Italian sounding, some that are just Boston people, some Russians, some French people.
We had a lot of Russians this last time.
Yeah, we've had some Asian voices, like all sorts of different types of accents. I think is fantastic to do. If you have an age variety, I think that's excellent, and that goes for both men and women.
For that, would you want to say the same thing but in different accents, and would that be cool?
I'm sorry?
Like say the same phrase but in different accents, and then can you judge from that?
Yes,
okay.
You can. If you can't do an accent too well, don't put it on your demo.
Put your best stuff first. There we go.
Also, something that I don't often see in demo reels, if you can do creature sounds, like that is amazing. Because we do a lot of vocal stuff for
hurt your voice
for sound design, so we can easily use some of those elements into a thing. Or, I think that also translates if you might be doing a character that becomes a monster. Like, that's a fantastic transformation.
Okay. We got one more. So I think you're the last question. Unless it's a quick one.
Pressure.
So, this is kind of a how to kind of get into coding.
Okay. Coding, perfect.
So, I'm going into high school right now, and I'm planning on going into game design. Is there any...
In high school, they have courses? Okay, cool.
So should I go into game design, or is there anything else that I, like, should I go into game design and something else, or is there something that I should go into?
But your ultimate goal
that?
is to be a software engineer to build them engineering side?
Yeah.
I'll answer by telling you a story of one of my friends in the industry who was a lead engineer. Well, the short answer is I think you should be an engineer. But he was a lead engineer, but he wanted to do game design. And so fortunately at the company I was working at, they let him transition for a project into a sort of a mid-level game designer. That lasted only that project. And he went back to engineering. And I asked him why he went back, because, naively, you're kind of like, I want to make games, and sometimes engineering isn't, it's there. And he said because he has just as much control over the design of the game as an engineer as he did as a game designer. And the bottom line is everybody is in on the conversation. That's why it's a social occupation. And you're always having conversations with people. And the person who has the final say on a game design decision is the lead designer. So unless you're the lead designer on a project, you're just participating in the conversation. The question is, professionally, what is the work that you want to be doing? Do you want to be into the tool set, building out levels, placing scripts, doing that? Or do you want to be building out the actual systems behind that and controlling how the game functions?
Kind of controlling how the game functions.
Then I would learn computer science and how to code algorithms, algorithm analysis, hardware, that sort of stuff. Game design will come as you play and learn how games work.
Are you able to make a game now, as far as have you dabbled with any either engines or anything like that?
Sadly, I haven't gotten a chance to yet.
Okay. There are some references over here of free systems, or at least as cheap as a new video game systems that you, depending on your skill level and interest level, you would look at.
And that's part of it is for me, I did certain things just to see if I could do them and see if I had fun doing them. And then you learn a lot by just doing that project.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things I did, and the nature of this will change because when I was little, it was quite a while ago. But the things I did programming-wise was I built tools for the games I liked, right? So there were ways to, export files. And so I wrote my own tools to analyze those files and figure out shortest path or where the trade paths were or where the dead ends were. And, all of a sudden now you're trying to find the shortest point between two things in a connected graph. Okay.
All right. I think we're done. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. We'll be available afterwards if you want to have a more private conversation. Remember, we have the programming resources up here. And thank you very much. Appreciate it.